Hey guys, welcome back to the second episode of CDH The Lost, a podcast about CDH. Fun fact. I'm here with Dylan and Nick again. Say hi guys.
Hello again.
We're back.
Yeah, and today we have a fun topic. Our last topic was a little complex and we are bad at this. So now we're doing a simple one. It's called a top 10 cards in CDH. Crazy topic. We're going to go through and give our top 10 one at a time and then discuss it. Probably flame each other, have some bad takes, hopefully bad takes. But yeah, that's what we're doing today. Um, Anything you guys wanted to say before we dive in?
I don't think so.
Just to clarify, we all have made a list of the top 10 cards in our opinion that are strong in the format, and we're going to be going through them starting from 10, which is the bottom of our list, all the way up to 1, which is the strongest card.
True. And before we get into the actual top 10, we're going to give an honorable mention because we thought that would be quirky. So Dylan, how about you start us off with your honorable mention?
Okay, so my honorable mention is Jeweled Lotus, which is, I'm sure everyone listening knows what the card does, but it's a 0-cost artifact. You sacrifice it, you add 3 mana of any color. It can only be spent to cast your commander. Card is fundamentally broken, turns out. A free 3 mana is really good, especially in a format that is essentially warped by commanders that are card advantage engines. So like Crom is now just 2 mana, like 1 every 4 games you play. It's pretty good.
Brynolin is only 5.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need to mention Brynolin.
Gas card. But it's just, I don't know, it's strong enough to be like a top card in CEDH, but I think there are at least 10 other cards that are stronger than it. And it didn't quite make my list.
I agree with it being an honorable mention. It's not mine, but there's a card called Black Lotus. It's a restricted in vintage. It's a really strong magic card. If you guys didn't know, it's 0 mana, sack it, add 3 mana. So you get to do that for cards that are always in your hand, essentially. So whenever you draw your Jeweled Lotus, you have a Black Lotus for 1 to 2 cards that are always in your hand. It's kind of a ridiculous and broken magic card.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's keeping it out of my list and potentially your list is that some commanders just can't take advantage of it well. Where like it's 3 mana of 1 color, so if you have a commander that only needs 1 mana from 2 specific colors, like Kinnan, and has no generic mana, you're only getting basically the effect of a Lotus Petal out of the card. So it's not going to see as much play in those type of lists. But still, ridiculous card.
Yeah, it's still very good. I think it definitely deserves to be in like the top 20 cards of CDH. Sadly, it's not top 10. Maybe it will be in the future when we get more and more commanders that are broken with Jewel Lotus. I'm thinking like a 5-drop with 2 blue pibs, or like any 3-drop commander really, or 4-drop commander that's 2 colors like Talion. Like Talion is just insane with Jewel Lotus. It's a 1 mana commander that draws you so many cards. But I think we summed Jewel Lotus up pretty well. So Nick, what's your honorable mention?
So I had to go with Displacer Kitten because you can combo off with the equivalent of like 2 sticks in a paper bag. It doesn't matter what you put in your list with it, it's going to synergize with something. And if you can build around it, it's kind of a ridiculous card. It's protection, it's recurring ETBs. It does so many things. It's got infinite combos with other cards that are played in the format. It just does everything.
Yeah, the card is really good. I don't know if it's a top 10, top 15 worthy, but it's definitely a broken card. Every single deck I've tried playing in the last year, I've tried to jam a Displacer Kitten in it, and most of the time it doesn't work probably because I'm a bad deck builder. But it's a card that I want to break, and everyone seems to want to break, and when it is broken, it's broken. I'm thinking like Hell's Cat, which is a Thrasio Spell Smasher deck. abuses the heck out of Displacer Kitten, and it's kind of a beauty to watch.
Yeah, it's fundamentally a broken card. I don't think I've ever actually resolved a kitten in CDH. Um, it's not
Really?
exactly my play style for the most part,
Oh,
but
that's fair.
I've seen the card just sit there and be like, oh yeah, guys, if this is on board, I'm just gonna win. Like I'm just gonna flavor my dockside like 6 times and just make semi-infinite treasures. Pretty casual.
It enables some
Like
crazy storm turns and stack plays.
Yeah, it's a insane magic card to play against. My honorable mention is also an insane magic card. It's Intuition. Um, it's a 3 mana 1 card combo. You can go search for any combo in your deck, but even if you're not trying to go get a combo like Underworld Breach, LED, and Savine's Reclamation, you can just go get like 2 counter spells and a card you want in your graveyard when someone has a win attempt on board, because your opponents are going to give you a counter spell to counter the win, and then you have a card you want in your graveyard. Or you can go like Noxious Revival, reanimate Thassa's Oracle, and then you're guaranteed to have like a Thassa's Oracle on your next turn. There's so many different play patterns you can do with Intuition that I think it definitely deserves a spot near the top. Don't have it in my top 10, obviously, because I think there's a few other cards that I like a little bit more than Intuition, but it's probably the second best tutor in the entire format.
yeah, I I love Intuition. Mostly because one of my favorite commanders ever just breaks the card. Even more so than it already is. But the card is just, I don't know, it's just fun. It's a puzzle. It's really difficult to play properly, which is probably part of the reason it's like not a top 10 card in the format and doesn't see probably as much play as it should. Because it's really hard to know what your intuition piles should be. You grab 3 cards, and it's now kind of just up to your opponent to be like, okay, how do I stop him from winning from this point?
I love
Yeah,
the potential for the mind games you can pull out with Intuition, and just how unsolved most of the piles are. Like, yeah, if you're in the right colors, there's that breach pile with breach, LED, and Savines, but beyond that, like the use cases for Intuition are super flexible from deck to deck and from game to game, honestly, no matter what you're playing.
yeah, I think that's a really important part, is that it's kind of seems to be like an underexplored card. Like everyone knows it's powerful for the Underworld Breach Savine's LED line, but I think if we spend a little more time with the card, you would be able to find more and more broken things. Like there's a Kenrith list that goes finds 3 random cards and then is able to piece together a win. There's so many creative things you can do with Intuition that I don't think you even need to have like a guaranteed win or like a guaranteed setup in order for it to be really good. I think that's all we need to say about Intuition. We all know it's broken. So let's move into our actual top 10. Dylan, what's your number 10 card?
Okay, at number 10, I have Boseiju, um, which is interesting. I didn't put much interaction in my top 10 because usually interaction isn't helpful unless your opponents are presenting a win of some sort. Most of my top 10 is confirming or presenting wins. But Boseiju is just, I mean, it's broken. It's an uncounterable removal piece. It is probably the strongest piece of removal in the format, easily. It gets through Grand Abolisher, which is probably the most consistent win con in the format right now. And it just it targets non-basic. It targets lands, enchantments, artifacts, just about everything. Um, the card's just dumb for a land. It's a free slot in any green deck.
And it
Yeah,
doesn't even
it's kind of
intertap.
insane that it's uncounterable, except to like a silence or not a silence, a stifle or a trick bind. And it does so much. Like Underworld Breaches stops. It stops Kinnan line sometimes with Assault Monolith, depending on what the board state's looking like. It does so much for such a little investment, like 2 mana. If it only ever cost 2 mana, it would be really good. But most of the time, it only costs a green mana because you're going to have your commander out or another legendary out. It's just an utterly insane card. I wonder if decks should probably maybe be playing like Sylvan Scrying or Expedition Map or those types of effects to be able to tutor for like Ottawara, Beseiju, and the other channel lands that are super hard to interact with.
Yeah, and if you're running those type of lands, if you're in green for Besejo, you're probably gonna have other land targets you'd want to grab, like Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I
so
think
the tutor's are
Beseiju
never gonna be
definitely
dead.
deserves a spot. But Nick, what's your top 10? Well, your 10.
Um, so my 10th card is gonna be Notion Thief. It's a Demir card, flash speed, and it says if your opponent would draw any card outside of the first card they draw in their draw step, you draw it instead. It's one of the few ways that's in the game right now to punish card draw, which I think is probably the best form of advantage you can have in CDH. And it draws a lot of hate for good reason because it's a very strong card and it warps games heavily in your favor because your opponents are all limited to drawing one card a turn, and if they attempt to draw any more, they're just going to fuel you instead. So it's a direct counter to cards like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, the One Ring, Timna, Crom, anything generating card advantage. This card makes that work for you.
Yeah, I
Okay.
definitely agree. It's a broken magic card. You're gonna get someone and draw 4, 5, 6 cards sometimes. Um, but what's your opinion on it being a 4-1 with the format warping bowmasters around?
Well,
Like, is it
Bowmasters
still?
exist. I refuse on principle to deck build for fear of Bowmasters. I'm not afraid of the card.
Yeah, I
If
agree.
someone's tutoring for Bowmasters, that's a tutor they're not using to find a win con or a piece that directly is shutting off my wins most of the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. You shouldn't build your deck in fear of bowmaster. Um, just like all the people that are drawing cards, they're not afraid of bowmaster. But when you play a Notion Thief and you steal someone's 5 cards off their One Ring that they just took 4 damage in their upkeep for, I think they're gonna feel pretty bad when you're drawing those 5 cards and they're not. So I respect this card being on the list instead of Bowmasters. That's a little bit of a hint to you guys. There's not a Bowmasters on Nick's list or my list. Because we are I'm at least low on the card Bowmasters itself. Um,
I
but
think
yeah, I
people
think
play it for the wrong reasons, but that's a topic for another time. We'll have a hot takes
true,
video at some point.
true. Dylan, did you have anything to say on Ocean Thief?
Um, I I find it interesting because I personally don't think that it is a top 10 card. I believe it is a strong card because it essentially, right, it's a one trick pony, essentially, right? Otherwise, it's just a stacks effect that's not, it's essentially taking the game from someone is just playing above everyone else to everyone's playing even rather than stopping your opponents from doing stuff.
See, that's
So
the thing. Everyone's playing even but you. You can still draw extra cards. And if they have any mandatory draw effects, like that are not maze, like Crom triggers, that's just free cards for you. If somebody has a Crom on the field and I have an Ocean Thief, I cast 2 spells, I draw a card.
it's just an interesting 4 mana investment, right? Because with the current state of the game, 4 mana spells are really strong. Um, Even just like blue black, there's other blue black creatures for 4 mana, specifically like Talion, that also provides um, like situational card draw that might just be. I don't know. I also don't have Talion on this list. I wouldn't put either too highly. I Notion Thief's a really strong card.
Yeah, I
I
don't
just don't know
think.
if it's stacks piece because it's essentially what it is.
Yeah, I think it's in the same category like opposition agent, whereas like an if factor, and when you get someone with it, it's really good. But I agree that it's
Yeah.
probably not top 10. Um, but I think it should probably see more play than it does.
Oh,
I'm
most
thinking
definitely.
like Phyrexian Metamorph is seeing a lot of play just because it copies the One Ring really well, is like the main
And
reason. And then
Dockside.
sometimes it gets you get to copy someone's commander like a Tivit or something, and that's good. But they are mainly playing it for the One Ring. Um, I think in some of those lists that aren't using Metamorph for anything else except copying the One Ring, I think they might want to look at Notion Thief as a way to stop your opponents from drawing a card or cards while you're getting advantage, and it being like a stacks piece because no opponent's going to activate their One Ring with a Notion Thief out. But I could be wrong about that. Um, I think it's an interesting thought discussion that different decks could try and experimenting with.
It's a very playable card.
Yes, for
It's
sure.
it's definitely should see more play than it does. It's just hard to put a card that's like almost a gimmick, right? Like you'll get one person with it in most games that you see it.
See, that's the thing where I'm at on it. I'm not using it to actively attempt to accrue the advantage. That's kind of just a side benefit. The main draw of it is how hard it keeps other players in the game off of card advantage. Like, it just
Yeah,
makes it
so you're
that
using
much
it
harder for
as
them to develop their game plan.
yeah, so you like it more as just a straight up stacks piece, basically, where every once in a while you're gonna flash it in and draw like 1 to 2 cards, but that's not the main reason why you play it. You play it because it stops people from drawing.
Yeah, even if there's no good window in a turn cycle to play it, I'm gonna play it on the end step before mine to get it out of my hand and on the field, and it's gonna slow people down and it's gonna change their play patterns just by being there. And that's what I value about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. All right, so my card in the 10th spot is Draneth Magistrate. Um, it's a pretty simple card. 1/3 for a colorless and a white human wizard. Your opponents can't cast cards from anywhere other than their hand. Card's insane in Commander. It shuts down the entire reason why you play the format, which is your commander. Your opponents can't cast their commanders with a Draineth out. They can't go for like underworld breach lines. They can't do any of the cool things that commander decks are supposed to do with a Draineth out. It brings everything to a halt except your own game plan. And a lot of the time, Draineth, while it's still like one of the biggest threats on the table because your opponents don't play the game, if there's a slightly other problematic card on the table, they're going to remove that first before the Draenith because the Draenith is stopping all the other opponents as well. And I think that's a very unique place for a stacks piece card where a lot of the time people aren't going to remove it until they can cast their commander afterwards.
Yeah. Fuck this card. I really like my commander centric decks. Um, and this card just makes it so difficult right now. Like a lot of like the top meta decks are all decks that are like I would love to cast my commander because it's a ton of advantage, but at the same time, I can just not. It's also an option. Like, oh my gosh, Draneth is a format warping card.
Yeah,
Like,
Yep.
if you want format warping, Draneth is
it's up there.
that's the card. It
Yeah,
also is a 1/3. Like,
yep.
It's a
There's like,
significant body in the
oh my
terms of
gosh.
commander, like CDH, what
yeah, it
sees the
blocks
board.
Timna.
Yeah.
It's kind of just brutal. It stops all the Timna attackers.
It gets jammed
Stops
in
it so
just
they
about
can't cast
every
their
deck with
Thrawn.
white.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have a
it's
special bit of hatred for Draneth at the moment. I've been playing a lot of Falco. We talked a little bit about that in the fringe deck discussion. Um, Turns out, even if you have Falco on the field, once Draneth comes down, you can't cast from your library. So the card kind of just slam dunks on everything the deck is trying to do. So when I see it on the board, I genuinely don't have a good time playing Falco Spara.
yeah. That's the same with
yeah.
Fibblefip. The main line is stack your deck and play cards off the top. With Draenith out, you kind of just sit there and cry. Um, you have to dedicate more slots when deck building to answer Draenith, which I think is a reason why it's a top 10 card. Because when you're dedicating slots in your deck to either stop it or you need this card to stop certain meta decks, and that's like the main way you're able to stop them.
I think that's the
It's
definition
kind
of
of
format
insane.
warping.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
turn one Drannith against a Rogside player, they basically just scoop the game majority of the time.
Yeah.
They sit there for like 4 turns doing nothing until someone else removes the Drannith. It's
Oh
a
my
brutal
gosh.
card, and I think I'm probably undervaluing it on my list with some of the other cards on my list, but it's an insane Magic card.
Yeah. Though it is a card we do need in the format, sadly. Because
True.
Underworld Breach is just also a busted card. Um, like, I don't know. I think we would need to have another, like, 2 mana creature that just says stop Underworld Breach before Drannith could ever healthily leave
Well, we
the
have
format.
what's the card? Colorless Soulless Jailer. I believe
It's not the same, let me
It's
tell
not the
you.
same.
it's not the same,
It's
but
not the
it's
same.
along the same lines.
It doesn't
Yeah, if
hit as
Drannith
well.
wasn't a card in the format, people would be playing Soulless Jeller because it stops Underworld Breach and other graveyard shenanigans. But since we have Drannith, Soulless Jailer seems like a bad card. Like decks that
Yeah.
aren't playing white aren't playing Soulless Jailer because they're like, what's the point? Drannith's in the format. This is just a subpar card.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, out of all of the cards I imagine we'll discuss today, this is probably the one most likely to ever get banned because of casual. Because this is
Yeah.
literally just the most anti-fun commander card to ever be printed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you build your deck around your commander, and then someone says you don't get to play your commander.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be devastating for some of my casual decks.
Yeah.
Oh no, Rasputin.
Oh no. I can't flicker my boy.
All
That
right,
deck is
Dylan, what's
fun.
your number 9?
At number 9, I have Silence. Turns out the ability to spend 1 mana and say your opponents can't cast spells this turn is really strong.
Gets
It
countered by
goes in
mental
every
misstep.
single.
Womp womp.
Sad. There's a reason it's at 9 and not higher. Um, it. I don't know. This is like, if this resolves, this wins the game. It is a must answer card that forces out responses, um, and goes in every single white deck in the format. It is one of the best ways to win games right now due to the high amount of interaction in the format currently, and just like the kind of slog that the format's in right now of just draw cards and hold interaction.
Yeah, the card's insane. We live in a CDH world where you can't really attempt to win unless it's either an uncounterable win or you have a silence effect up. Either it's like a defense grid or a straight up silence, ranger captain. Um, you need one of those up in order to win, it seems now in the format with how mid rangey and controlly the format is. It's also a defensive card. If someone puts Underworld Breach on the stack, you can silence them. Or if they put like a Demonic Consultation on the stack for whatever reason, you can silence them. So whatever card they get, they can't cast right away. Or if they put an Adnaz, you can silence them and they can't win the game, which is kind of brutal. I have silence on my list, but it's not for a little bit because I think it's definitely probably my favorite instant in the entire format, which is saying a lot as I'm a mono blue player at heart. Um, if silence was a mono blue card, let me tell you,
Mono blue would be a lot
I would
better.
love it. Yeah,
A lot less people would play white. That's for
true.
sure.
Yeah, but silence, an amazing card. Nick, do you have anything to add to the silence hype?
Silence is a good card. I don't personally place it in my top 10. Um, I think the big draw with like Grand Abolisher over Silence is that being a creature, a lot of the times you can play Grand Abolisher for just 1 mana more, and it won't get countered, and then the counter target non-creature spells sitting in your opponent's hands go wasted. But also the other side of that is Silence being an instant means it's stopping your opponents and protecting yourself. It's a dual use card, right? Whereas Grand Abolisher just protects you.
Dude, sandbagging a silence feels so good.
Yeah, it
You're a
does.
bad person, but so am I.
Um, yeah, sounds great.
All right, Nick, what's your number 9?
Well, um, my number 9 slot is it's not one card per se, but it's a collection of the played channel cards in the format. I couldn't decide between any of them, so I'm kind of lumping Beseju, Otawara, Touch the Spirit Realm, Colossal Sky Turtle all in under the same spot. Just because I
But the
think channel
crab,
effect,
Nick.
the crab too, but that doesn't really see play. I fear.
True, the crab. It's a pet card of mine, but it does not see enough play.
But they're just good because of the lack of stifle effects played in the format. Like the only one seeing consistent play right now, I think, is Tishana's Tidebinder, which is a 3 mana investment, which is generally not going to be used against a channel land. But the channel lands are uninteractable to a point. They're usable at instant speed. They can go through Grand Abolisher or Silence. Like it's just they're so strong for what they are. And in the case of Beseju and Otawara, you're not losing deck slots to them. They're just replacing lands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said. The channel cards are just uncounterable spells with the channel ability, because some people play Trick Bind, some people play Stifle, but overall, no one really plays Stifle effects. And I will give a shout out to all the other lands that aren't Otawara Beseju, because those are still good. Like Tokonuma can return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. The white one can kill attacking creatures. And then the red one is a powerhouse in Winota. You ever pay 4 mana to get 2 non-human attackers to go get Blade Historian and Rick out? It feels amazing, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So each of the channel lands do have a home, and it's such a low requirement for them is that you just have to be in the colors and your deck's playing them. Sometimes you don't play Takanuma or Ojanju, which is the white one, um, depending on how many colors you're playing or what your deck is looking for. But the cards are utterly insane. Touch, I always thought was a little bit overplayed, and then I played Atraxa. It's insane. It stops wins. It makes it so your creature that's gonna get killed by a board wipe doesn't get killed. When you do it on your Atraxa, you draw 5 more cards at the end step. It's a insane magic card.
Yeah, I think Touch might just be better than Odawara.
Maybe. It's
Touch is
super
so
versatile.
good. And like, you can also just play it. Like,
Yeah.
if there's a
Oh
stack
yeah,
piece, you can permanently just remove something.
it's
Yeah.
a fantastic card.
Touch is dumb. I realize how
White decks
stupid
can't leave home
Takanuma is
without
in
it.
Pietro.
Yeah, because you discard it, return something, and then Pietro deals combat damage in your turn, Takanuma.
Well, yeah, you also mill 3?
True. That's really good in
Yeah.
there.
No, the
Making
channel.
bad commanders good.
Yeah. That's what
That
we're
is
all
what we
about
do.
here. No, the channel lands or just the channel cards are
It's a strong
probably
mechanic.
underplayed.
Until people start playing more stifle effects, I think they're going to remain extremely strong. And even if they do, that's fine. You still play them. It's just good cards to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My number 9 is Manglehorn. It's a 2/2 for 2 colorless and a green. When it enters the battlefield, you can destroy target artifact, and artifacts your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. This card is bonkers. I think any green deck, unless you're a polymorph deck, should be playing it. Even if you're a polymorph deck, you should be playing it. Let's be real. It stops dockside combos. It stops Hullbreaker horror combos. It stops so many combos, and it's such a easy include for any deck really. I'm playing a Torsten food chain deck later today, and Manglehorn is in there, and it's probably the best stacks piece in the deck. Just because it's so versatile, and if you get it out turn 1 or 2, you slow the game down. It's basically having a collector roof out, which is less brutal because people aren't going to spend their entire life purpose destroying your Manglehorn. and you'll be able to destroy like an early mana crypt or a soul ring and really swing the tides in your favor.
So I do have some questions for you with regards to that specific card. Why Manglehorn as opposed to the, especially in Torsten where you're also in white, where you could have Blind Obedience or Dauntless Dismantler in that slot? Is it the ETB effect? Or...
It's because it's a creature, mainly over Blind Obedience, because when you're in green and white, your best tutors are going to be creature tutors from your green. And then I like it over Dauntless Dismantler currently because of the ETB. I think Dauntless Dismantler over time might overtake it. I also think we have to look at step back and look at the decks currently in the format. And one of the best decks in the format is Kinnan. And Kinnan doesn't play Dauntless Dismantler. It plays Manglehorn because it's blue-green. But we have to look at the format and realize that Kinnan is the most stacked deck we have currently in the meta, mainstay at least, because it's playing Trinisphere and stuff like that. And the best stacks piece, hands down, in that deck is Manglehorn. You can probably argue for the Perplexing Chimera, but that card
No,
gives everyone
no.
headaches.
That card is
So
awful and
we don't
bad.
talk about that card, and it's only played in Kinnan. Manglehorn in every
I
green
talk
deck.
about that card. I'm gonna put it in Orvar, and
No,
you
no,
can't stop me.
Oh, in Orvar, it's gas. Let's be real.
no. Oh
I would like to make
no.
10 copies of Perplexing Chimera. Please cast spells so I can cast them.
No, it's definitely interesting because I think Manglehorn and Blind Obedience are very similar power levels depending on what deck you're playing. In green, Manglehorn is easier to tutor. Outside of green, I mean, you wouldn't be playing Manglehorn, but like if you're also playing blue or something, I think Blind Obedience becomes just a better card the more colors you have in the deck.
Yeah.
I think Dauntless Dismantler might just be a better card overall. It being a
No, I
one
think it might
four,
as well.
I think it being a 1/4 is ridiculous. Um, and its tap ability is pretty ridiculous as well. It's what? XX and a white, destroy all artifacts with CMC X
Or less.
or less. It's or less.
Is it
Yeah.
or
Oh
less?
god.
I
That's
think it's or
really
less.
ridiculous. I don't think it is,
No.
but I
There's
could
no way
very
it's
well be
not.
wrong on that.
Even if it's not or less, it's still an insane magic
Yeah.
card. I only have Manglehorn up above it. I think I wanted just some kind of artifact enters tapped on the top 10. And Manglehorn sees play in just about every green deck under the sun, where Blind Obedience and Dauntless Dismantler, you have to be slanted a different way in order to play them. Like Tivit plays Blind Obedience. Dauntless Dismantler seeing some kind of play in like Blue Farm and a little bit of other shells, but they haven't seen like the widespread play like Manglehorn has seen.
I think it's also difficult because right now green is just not in a great spot. Like
No, I
out of
agree.
the colors and like in the format, it's probably the worst right now.
Yeah, I agree with
But
that.
Dismantler is mana value X, not or less.
Okay, still
The
broken.
card would be, it's still really strong. If it was or less, I would be in shambles.
You end a lot of decks in the format.
Yeah, that would be brutal. Um, but it is just, I mean, that style of effect is so strong right now. Like it
Yeah,
shuts off. I mean, mostly it shuts off Kinnan is the big one. Kinnan and Tivit struggle to play through it. Blue Farm doesn't enjoy it by any means. Just the top of the meta is very like, I want to develop a card advantage engine in the first few turns, which
yeah,
requires mana. Um, and entering the battlefield tapped is just brutal.
for sure.
A pain in the ass. Very strong.
I won't
Yeah,
argue with one of those effects being in your top 10. I think, personally, I would put Dismantler up higher for cheaper mana cost and notably not dying to a Braid and Lightning Bolt. That thing being a 1/4 is ridiculous.
Yeah,
No,
1/4
I
is
agree.
dumb.
I have yet to play a game where Dauntless Dismantler has been on the battlefield. So my view on Dauntless
Yeah,
Dismantler is still non-existent.
That's fair.
yeah. I still also have yet to see it play. I don't
I have played
own one
against it.
yet,
It is not
so
fun.
It probably feels the same as playing against, like, I don't know, Manglehorn or something.
maybe. I mean, I had a
Yes, but also I had my treasures blown up before I untapped, so that felt bad.
Maybe just get better at the game?
Oh, you got me there. I should have played a stifle effect.
yeah. You got to
All
stifle
right.
those
Hint.
flusterstorm triggers.
True.
Trick
You can do
Stifle
that.
some
mind.
storm triggers.
All right, Dylan, what's your number 8?
At number 8, I have Ranger Captain of ES, which is 1 and 2 white. When it enters the battlefield, I think it's a 3/3. You get to go search for a creature with CMC 1 from your deck, and it goes into your hand, and then you can sack it, and your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. This is a better silence. Uh, I mean, it's a creature. It can attack for Timna. It's harder to counter. And once it's on the board, you can play it on like turn 2, and then it just sits there until you need it. And once you need it, it can't be countered. It is just a much more difficult to deal with silence effect, and it warps the game around it once it's on the field. And it usually grabs an Esper Sentinel, which is like a dumb card.
Yeah, I agree with all that, except you said what the card does incorrectly.
Did I?
You get to search for a creature with CMC 1 or less. You can go get a
Oh,
0 drop. It's relevant in like
nice.
Winota.
It is relevant. It is relevant.
But yeah, the card's insane. I have it up higher on my list. But the card is utterly broken. The only reason I didn't put Esper Sentinel on the list is because I put Ranger Captain on the list, and they're like the pair.
Yeah.
That's the dream team. You play Ranger Captain on like turn 2, go get Esper Sentinel. You're chilling the rest of the game. You're in the game.
That's understandable. I think the only reason I don't have Ranger Captain on the list is because I'm a psychopath and I build stifle effects into any blue deck I play. So I don't always feel as bad about seeing them.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess when you do have 1 or 2 stifle effects in every deck, the Ranger Captain stifling the Ranger Captain ability does seem really hot.
True.
Yeah, and there's
I
no
haven't done
shortage
that
of
yet,
targets.
but it seems really good. But again, it can be used offensively or defensively. I will
Yep.
say a negative is that you do become kind of like the target because they're like, hey, there's a Ranger Captain ability just on the stack whenever he wants. And people will start to look at you differently instead of looking at you with like rose tinted glasses. They're looking at you like you have devil horns. It's kind of scary to play because when everyone turns their attention to you and you're like, outcast this Adnaz, and they're like, Adnaz is a bad example.
It
Outcast
is a
this
bad example.
demonic tutor, and then they use literally everything on you because they're like, oh, it's going to be a Thoracle win or whatnot. And you're like, no, I'm just trying to get a Rhystic Study so I don't lose, or a counterspell so we don't lose. They're like, yeah, but you have Ranger Captain, we're fine. And it's like, no, we're not, please.
No.
And then you kind of get bent over just for having a 3-drop 3/3 that can make it so you can't lose the game, or you can just win the
Yeah.
game without being touched.
Yeah, people
And
get really nervous about letting it get back around to your turn for good
Yeah,
reason. They should be
Yeah.
true.
scared.
But it is very good to note Ranger Captain does not stop your opponents from winning the game. It only stops non-creature spells.
True. So if they're weird and playing creature combos, they can still
True.
win the game.
Who would ever play creature combos?
Also
Like,
worth
And
noting, if you're using it to protect yourself, you can still get slapped around by flash creatures.
true.
true. Oppo is a
Tidebinder, Oppo, Ocean
annoying
Thief.
card.
Bowmaster.
Bad card. We don't talk about that.
Well,
I mean, I agree, but
Well,
I'm currently playing it, so I can't talk crap about
I'm
it.
also currently playing it, I fear.
I'm also currently playing it.
I'm not gonna go as far as to say it's a bad card. I don't think it's as good as people hype it up to be.
True. I don't think it should be in every black deck, but
Yeah. All
it
right.
doesn't make it
So,
unplayable.
who's up next for their slot?
It's a Nick and your 8th card.
My 8th card. So we've got another land. In my
Oh
8th
gosh.
slot, I put Emergent Zone. Um, and a lot of you might not even know what that is. Like you might have just never heard of this card. But it's a land that comes in untapped, taps for colorless mana. You can also pay 1 into it and tap sacrificing Emergent Zone, and you can cast spells as though they had flash for a turn. Uh, Flash is broken. It's good. Being able to do everything in the game at instant speed is kind of good. It allows you to develop creatures that need haste a turn before you need them. It lets you present wins over the top of someone else. I think that's the way the format's going. Being able to flash in wins over the top of other people is going to be a really fantastic way to win games. Possibly better than having a Grain Abolisher effect, although that's going to be a big debate.
We'll get
I
to that debate.
I agree that Emergent Zone is ridiculous, and playing at flash speed is really good. I'm playing Haide, Hidetsu, and Kyrie right now, and the flash effects literally make me cream my jorts. They're insane. You ever cast an Enter the Infinite with a Bowmaster's out, draw 70 cards, there's 70 triggers, cast Born Upon the Wind, draw a card, which is your last card in your library, take a damage, and then be able to flash a win in over the top of 70 Bowmaster triggers. The endorphins you get when you do that is unreal. Being able to play at flash speed when someone has a Thassa's Oracle in the stack, brutal. I've won twice now with Hidetsu and Kyrie when someone has a consultation resolved and then Thassa's Oracle ETB on the stack. I've won on top of them. Let me tell you, they shit their brains out. They're like, "What the heck just happened? Why are you winning here? It's during my turn. You can't do this. This is illegal." I think Emergent Zone and Born Upon the Wind, which I believe is going to be higher up on some of our lists, are absolutely insane and definitely deserve consideration in the top 10.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
will be seeing Born Upon a Wind again on my list. I'm very high on Flash Speed as a whole. Um, I think it's fantastic. It just breaks the rules of the game in ways that people will not be ready for, even if they see Emergent Zone sitting on your board. And the fact that cards like Emergent Zone and Born Upon a Wind exist mean that at some point we have to play knowing that even if there's not an Emergent Zone on the field, certain decks can grab them at instant speed, place them on the field, or get one of those effects out and go over the top of us. And I think it just kind of is going to change the way we have to play. If you're playing against a deck with green, they can crop rot that emergent zone in order to go over the top of you at instant speed. Like
For a
there's just
crop rot, 3 mana Born Upon the Wind.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
phenomenal.
And
No.
I think having Emergent Zone and Born Upon the Wind just kind of shows that Wizards is willing to print cards that give flash at any time, really. And we're going to end up seeing more of them. Like in the newest set, Murders at Markov Manor, there's a 3-drop spirit that lets you cast things at flash speed during each opponent's end step.
Is it
It's a
really?
little more restrictive, but the card just seems utterly broken
It also
in like a
notably
control
has
shell.
flash
What
itself.
color is it?
It's
Yeah,
a blue
it
creature.
also does that.
It's a blue card? Dang it. No, Flash is busted. Turns out. My entire Rocco deck is built around the concept of Flash because the format's so toxic right now. Like it's just so
There's so much
interactive right
interaction.
now.
So what you want to do
Yeah.
is go over the top of someone else because when you see their win is going to resolve, you know there's no more interaction unless they're the ones that have it.
Or if they get stopped and everyone's like, "Hey, do you have any interaction?" Or if they don't get stopped, and then you're like, "Sure, cast Born Upon the Wind."
Let me just
I don't
win
like
and
this
spend.
interaction. Stop, stop, stop.
Yeah, I'm not okay with this.
That's not what I meant.
No, it's Flash is definitely. I'm running 5 or 6 Flash effects in my Rocco deck. I definitely think it is just the way the format's going. Um, it is probably one of the strongest keywords to ever be printed, next to like Storm. Um, it's
Infect, baby.
Infect. Let's go. No,
Brave Storm.
it's a dumb effect. This will definitely not be the last time we talk about Flash effects
No, definitely not.
on this tier list.
All right, my number 8. It's a good old classic from Alpha and Beta, Demonic Tutor. Um, this card's broken. I know people don't see it as broken because every single deck plays it, and it's like a casual commander card. Even it's not really seen as a CDH card, but it's an insane card. It makes every card in your deck just cost 2 more mana, and you can go get it instantly. It curves out your draws, so you get like uh Underground Sea, Mana Crypt, Demonic Tutor. You can go get Rhystic Study right away, or if you only have one blue source, like say it's a island lotus petal demonic tutor, you can go get fish. It curves out your draws. It lets you tutor for any card. And it's only 2 mana, and most people aren't going to care really when you demonic tutor. They're going to be like, okay, we can just counter what comes after it. So it's probably I have it as the number one tutor in the entire format. Just because how versatile it is and how mini decks play it and how just generically good it is, even though maybe people don't see it as good because of its like ingenuity with how well known it is.
Yeah, it's probably
Yeah,
one of those things where it just gets overlooked. But yeah, it's just good. Like there's no bad aspect to the card itself, and there's no revealing what you get. So you have the option to politic with it. You can choose to reveal what you tutored, or you can not, and you can just have a card that your opponents have to be aware of the fact that you tutored for a card and they don't know what it is.
yeah.
Yeah, I do want to push the point that even if you tutor for a bad card and they don't know that you tutored for a bad card, they'll think that you just have like the nuts in your hand. Like there's been many times now that I've tutored for like Orcish Bowmaster just because it kills like a problem creature on the battlefield, or there's like a one ring that's gonna tap and draw 3 cards. And I have a very low opinion on Bowmasters as a whole, but tutoring for it has been one of my favorite things to do in both Time and High Day, just because people know my opinion on the card, and they're like, okay, that's not the card they tutored for, obviously, even though it 100% is, so they think I still have gas in my hand when I really don't. I think I
CDH
might have
mind
gave away
games.
some of, yeah, I think I gave away a little bit of my secrets to Nick at least,
Oh
but
yeah,
that's okay. We have more tricks up
Never.
our sleeve.
I would
No,
never have a trick up my sleeve.
Demonic Tutor is a really good card. Even just like, hey, 2 mana crypt,
Yeah,
it's a
still
good
good.
card. Like
2 mana Jewel Lotus. Good card.
4 mana Dockside.
Good card.
It just wins you the game with Underworld Breach.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah,
Like,
it's very good.
honestly, it's just a 1 card win con with enough
Yeah,
mana.
yeah.
But that's because Breach is broken.
All
That's
right,
Yeah,
now we have number 7 from Dylan.
my number 7 is Grand Abolisher. Um,
Hmm. Your list.
there's a there might be a slight theme to the last three cards, but Grand Abolisher turns out silence on a stick, but better. It's 1 and a white. Your opponents can't cast spells,
no, no, no.
activated
It's double white.
abilities.
That boy is double white.
I said double white, did I not?
Said 1 and a white, I think, or my hearing's just going, which
I
could
It's
be
mean,
double
case.
either
white.
is fine. It's double
Anyway, it's
white.
double white.
Your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of creatures, lands, artifacts. I think it's just everything. Your opponents can't do anything on your turn. And it's just, besides for Flash, it's probably the strongest Flash effects. It's probably the strongest way to just win a game in CEDH right now. Because if someone puts a Grand Abolisher on this deck and it resolves, 9 out of 10 times the game is over. I mean, it's the same thing as the last two cards. They're just strong. They just win games, essentially for free.
Part of the issue with Grand Abolisher and why it's so strong is the counter spells that Cedh play, the things that can interact on the stack with Grand Abolisher, are few and far in between. You're looking at like Mana Drain, Force of Will, Spell Snare, Delay, and those are kind of the only ones that see a large amount of play. I mean, I guess you got Reprieve in there, you got some weird ones, but there's not a lot that can hit Abolisher on the stack. People aren't ready for it.
And then once it's resolved, it's Touch the Spirit Realm and Otawara. And then also the
Colossal Sky Turtle.
And Moon Snare for Prototype?
Yeah, but spell, who actually plays Moon Snare?
Hey, Moon Snare is hard.
But I never see people putting it in their decks.
Doubleflip does.
Hey.
Yeah, well, that's the exception.
Yes.
I will say, I do like Grand Abolisher. It's not in my top 10. Because recently in the meta, we've had a weird switch of people just playing a turn 2 Abolisher. Because that's what they have in hand. And then they become the instant threats. And then they're like, why are you targeting me? It's just a value Grand Abolisher. And it's like, if we let you on tap with it, you could win the game at any moment. So it's just not in my top 10 just because I fear currently in the meta people aren't playing it correctly.
Yeah, I don't think that's so much the card. I think that's just people being
acoustic.
Yeah, for lack of a better word. Yeah. We're not politically correct here at CDH The Lost. Bad Magic players and bad people. We've got it all.
All right, Nick, it's let's go to your number 7.
Oh boy. Am I ever excited. So clocking in at number 7 for me, Culling Ritual. And I think this is a little bit of a strange card to see on this list. But boy, does this card put in the work. When you see a Culling Ritual resolve against decks like Kinnan or anybody playing a lot of Mana Dorks or that have played out a lot of rocks, it's brutal. It sets you back so far, destroys so much mana, so many creatures, value engines, so many things in CDH get hit by this card and generate the person who cast it mana, and then it's destroying board states for a lot of people. I just think it's really hard for a lot of decks to recover from a Culling Ritual if it goes off. And usually the player who cast it and has their deck built around knowing that it's in there is going to be a lot further ahead in the game. You guys have any opinions on that?
This card is so strong. Culling the Weak is a very strong card. The only reason I don't put it so high is because the current meta, it's mostly going to be Kinnan that the card is targeting. A lot of decks like Blue Farm and these really like decks that are very prepared to like play the game of attrition aren't going to mind a board wipe as much. Kinnan will. Honestly. Screw Kinnan.
Hits Kinnan. It hits every quick mana rock, even Talisman Signets, all the 2 mana rocks, all the 2 mana value creatures. There's so many targets. Like if I went through any of my CDH decks right now, I bet I could find at least 20 to 30 cards in every deck that get hit by Culling Ritual.
Yeah, no, it does hit most of the ramp in the format. It definitely sets the game back, depending on when you cast it. Right. If you cast it too late into the game, a lot of people are going to just have enough lands naturally from the flow of a game. But if you cast it on like turn 3, at least one player is out of that game. Like,
yeah, the card brutal to play with, brutal to play against. Casting it on turn 4 will typically net you like 7-8 mana, and then you can respond afterwards by playing like Whirling Brood Lord or like Atraxa That's the only deck that
Adna's
I played
Pier.
recently that's had it in there. Adna's Pier. You're typically able to have some kind of like value engine or a win attempt after a culling ritual that makes it such a brutal card in any deck that plays green black. And if you're playing green black, it's like an auto include.
Yeah, it's such a good card. I mean, all of these are obviously
True.
I would hope.
best cards in the format.
All right, so my number 7 is Gaia's Cradle. If you're playing green, there's two cards that you're required to play, and I feel like it's Manglehorn and more importantly Gaia's Cradle. Unless you're like a polymorph deck with like Thrasios Rog, you're playing Gaia's Cradle. It's the best card in your deck 99% of the time. Because it's a ritual every turn. If you have 4 creatures, it's 1 land drop that adds 4 mana, which is utterly broken. In green, you're playing so many combos that combo with it, whether it's like a Shaya or like a Kamal, where you're making it a creature, then blinking it with a meal, which is my one of my new favorite combos to do with it. In Torsten Food Chain, shout out again. But Gaia's Cradle kind of just insane. It's insane in any format it's illegal in, just because it's an uncounterable ritual that you get to do every turn. Even if it's only 2 mana, it's still 2 mana uncounterable. That's accruing value over time.
And it's colored mana. It's green mana too. It's not even colorless.
Yeah,
It's just good. And it doesn't come in
Cradle.
untapped. It's fetch. It's you can grab it with a lot of tutors or anything that grabs a legendary. So for decks like Sisse,
Yep.
um, it's there's no reason not to play it if you're in green, with the exception of polymorph decks.
Yeah, and polymorph is bad, so you should just be playing it. As well as crop rot, because if you're playing Gaia's Cradle, you're playing crop rot.
True. And if
Turns
you're
out
playing Crop Rot,
you're
you're
playing
playing
Emergence
Emergent
Zone.
Zone.
Crazy.
And
Yo,
if you're playing Emergent Zone, you have a based Magic the Gathering deck.
Yeah.
you heard it here,
No,
folks. Play
the
emergence.
ability to just like tap a land and make like 7 mana. I mean, depending on the deck. I know in Rocco, like the one out of like 50 games I play that I see Gaia's Cradle, it's just I don't know. I get to play Rocco for like 7, and I'm like, I have 3 lands on board.
Yep.
Card is just bonkers until you draw it
Yeah.
in your opening hand, and you're like, I have 2 lands in this hand, and none of them cast creatures.
Yeah, I think currently it's the only thing that's keeping green kind of afloat is just
Yeah,
because you have the green creature tutors and then you have the best land in Commander
yeah,
because it adds
and
so much
Boseiju, which is the
and the
other
safety.
land that has the argument for best land in CDH. No, Gaia's
Yeah,
Cradle.
utterly insane card.
I mean, they banned the blue counterpart, so
True.
which
Um.
is fair.
All right. So Dylan, number 6 for you.
For number 6, I have Born Upon the Wind. Um,
Yeah.
for the reason that I think it's just a better silence effect. Like it fulfills the same role of allowing you to present wins in at a time that you normally wouldn't be able to, except for the horizon. Like the scope is just so much larger because Flash is a stupid mechanic. And at the worst, it's a cantrip. Like at worst, you pay 2 mana, draw a card, maybe cast a rock or 2, maybe some dorks. Like I don't know, the card's dumb. It's really strong. Flash is a stupid mechanic. It's probably gonna just be what CEDH is built on in like a couple of years. I
Yeah,
wouldn't be
I
surprised.
agree. I Same reasons Emergent Zone's good, Born is good. The only negative I would say is that both of the cards are pretty dead if you're not trying to go for a win, or if that's not something you're even like close to. because Emergent Zone only adds a colorless, so at least it taps for mana. And Born is 2 mana cantrip at instant
which is
speed.
bad.
Very bad. People don't play Opt right now, and Opt is a better card than 2 mana draw a card. But the potential of presenting a win on this deck is very important, and I think over time, Flash will become more and more relevant. Um, that's the literal only reason I don't have Born or Emergent Zone on my list, is because they're kind of dead cards without you winning the game. When you win the game, it's hot, but without you winning the game afterwards, they're kind of bland and dead cards in the deck.
Yeah.
All right, you can do some. It just fundamentally changes the way you can play the game sometimes. Like I've cracked an Emergent Zone to cast a flash speed Memnonic Betrayal into casting a flash speed Drannith Magistrate from someone else's graveyard after it was removed. Like
Yeah, that's hot.
it's.
Yeah.
I think they just open up new avenues
No,
in
I
a deck.
agree.
I mean, Born Upon the Wind single-handedly revived Necro from the grave. Like,
Whoa. There's
Necro was dead. Like,
There's the Enchanter that let you
dude, that deck was dead before Born Upon the Wind.
no, Shimmermere, Urza's Battlethopter, the
Those
other
all
one.
came out this last year, baby.
I know, but now some Zer decks aren't even on Born Upon the Wind, which is incorrect, but some
Yeah,
That
I
is
think
aren't.
that's
very
wrong. Are you looking at casual Zer or what's going on here?
No, CDH Zer.
Oh no.
They're just playing. They're up to 5 flash effects now, which is really good for that deck.
Yeah.
No, 6 now because some of them are even on Tidal Barracuda.
Oh, that's
Gas
a bad
card.
card.
Oh,
Well, as much as I like Flash, I like it when I'm the only one that has it.
Yeah, I would
yeah,
not
that
like
is
to
fair.
grant my opponent's flash.
All right, Nick, what's your number 6?
Alright, so in the number 6 slot, I don't think it needs a lot of discussion, but Underworld Breach is there. One of the better win cons in the format, an incredible value piece, an enchantment. Like, it's great off intuition piles. It's just good. It's just good. It's been broken so many times in so many decks. Everyone knows that when someone's casting it, it's probably game ending.
Yeah, it's a little good.
Yeah, a little bit.
I will say that I think not enough decks are playing Underworld Breach.
No.
I think even like the slower red decks, like Winota, can probably actually just play Underworld Breach as a value piece because the card is just insane. It's a
It is,
Yawgmoth
like,
Will essentially in
at
red.
worst, it's a regrowth.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
in
So I
red.
think it's surprisingly is an underplayed card, even though 90% of the red decks in the format play it. I think it could see a little bit more play, and it would still be used properly. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to be winning the game with it in order for it to be good, which is insane.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been in and out of Rocco constantly. Like, recursion is so hard to find in red. It's not the most common thing. And Breach just allows not only recursion of one card, recursion of however many you want, essentially.
As long as you have cards to exile, you're good to go.
Yeah, and then it just wins with intuition. Any tutor just wins you the game. Like,
Yep.
cards
Very
busted.
yeah. Broken card.
Yeah, cards broken.
Crazy.
Moving on. There's not a lot to say there.
True. My number 6 is a Ranger Captain of Eos. Same thing we've already said before. It's a silence effect. It tutors for a creature. It is a creature, so it's hard to counter. Um, I like it a little bit more than Grand Abolisher just for the fact that there's other things you can do since it has the activated ability. You can like Soul Cauldron it, and then every creature that ever gets a counter again is just a silence effect. Broken.
Bro, Soul Cauldron is such a funny card.
Tie him, you can sack.
Oh
silence an
yeah,
opponent, activate time, get it out again, silence your next opponent, and do like a pseudo silence lock, which is really sweet.
there was the deck at one point was playing Dosen as well, and you could
Yeah.
dose and lock people.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
insane.
bro, Time's a funny deck. What a
Yep.
silly little pile of cards.
All right. Dylan, you're number 5.
My number 5 is Dranith. Crazy.
Ew.
Um, Same
Wow,
reason
good
we
card.
talked about at the start. Cards busted. Completely warps the format. Kind of goes against everything Commander is supposed to be, but that's okay. It stops Underworld Breach. So here we are.
Wizards, if you're listening, don't ban it, please. I
Please
don't play
don't.
white that often, but we need it.
We do need it. We need it so badly.
All right, Nick, you're number 5.
We're at another card we've already discussed. This is where I slotted Born Upon a Wind in. I put it in the number 5 slot just because I'm very high on flash effects, and Born Upon a Wind is one of the best flash effects you can have in a deck right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
All
Dumb
right, my
magic
number
card.
5 is Silence. We've already talked about it. It's 1 mana, you win the game, or 1 mana, your opponents don't win the game. Really good magic card.
Turns out. Crazy.
All right,
That'll bring us back
Dylan,
to
you're
Dylan.
number
Number
4.
4.
Okay, the One Ring. Here we go. Something new.
Boo.
Um, the One Ring. It's 4 mana for a incredibly strong card engine. In any deck that is not blue, is where I would be wanting to play the One Ring. Because any deck that's not blue has Esper Sentinel and Archivist of Ogma. And that's about it for card draw. And then they printed the One Ring, and I was like, I get to draw cards in Morocco now. This is a weird feeling. And also the ETB effect is just strong, or is it cast? I think it's cast, right?
It's an ETB, but if you
ETB,
cast it.
yeah.
Weird. But turns out a whole rotation of not being able to die at the right point in the game.
Can be
Pretty
good.
good. Can be good. Sadly, Thassa's Oracle exists, so not as good as it could be.
True.
But I mean, it's one of the best card engines in the format. A lot of decks, even blue decks, are still playing it despite it being 4 mana. If you play it in the first 2 turns of the game, you're probably winning.
It just
Yeah.
draws so many cards so quickly and gets out of hand very fast. And being indestructible, conveniently, most destroy artifact spells won't touch it.
Yeah. That
Okay,
is
guys,
slightly important.
let me cook.
Oh no, here we go.
The One Ring is a bad CDH card. I've come to realize that if you're paying 4 mana for a card advantage engine that's not in your command zone, like Crom or Talion, it's a bad card. Like, I think Talion in the 99 is a bad card advantage card. I think the One Ring, unless you're getting it out on turn 1 or turn 2, bad magic card. They don't do enough. Like, the One Ring will protect you from creature combos or any of the other weird combos in the format for a turn rotation, but you drawing 7 cards in 3 turns, no, it would be 4 turns.
In 4 turns, you draw more than 7 cards.
Hold on, I'm doing some mental math.
It's
In
6
4
cards for
Drawing,
3 turns is generally what people say.
yeah,
It's
It's
6
1
cards
and
for
10
3
2.
for,
turns.
yeah.
Even like 6 cards for 3 turns, I don't think it's good enough for a card advantage engine in our Lord and Savior's Magic in 2024. Just because when you have a Rhystic Study and there's 3 turns that go by, you're drawing more than 6 cards most of the time.
Well, I hope not.
That's I hope not too, but in reality, that's what's happening. Someone's going to go for a win. There's going to be a counter war, and they're not going to pay. And then you're going to draw some cards, a lot of cards. And I think drawing those separately, while though the card is a very strong card, I'll give you that in every other format. I think when you present a card advantage engine, you kind of get a target on your back, and the One Ring, especially since it hits your life total, makes you like the number one threat at the table, even if you're not the actual number one threat, because they're like, let's just kill the guy with the ring, because it is the correct play to do. Um, and we can go into the whole Talion debate later, but that's kind of the same reason I don't like Talion, except for in the command zone. I think in the command zone, he's gas. Let's be real. He's
Yeah,
gas because you always have him. And
I'm
your
not a
goal is
big.
to get him out turn two. Like if the One Ring was always in your hand and you got him out consistently turn two, probably the best card ever printed.
Well,
But I
yeah,
think that it's not a guaranteed turn two. And when you do have it, you get a giant target on your back. Is the reasons why I personally am not that high on my card.
I think it really depends on like the matchup, right? Because if you're playing into decks that are planning to play that game of attrition, the card does just accumulate so much more value than most other cards in the game will.
Yeah.
Though it does force you to take action at some point.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't like the inevitability. Well, that can't be it because Talion doesn't eventually kill you. Talion just sits there and gives you cards.
Yeah, I'm not a big
I think
Talion fan in the 99.
I think 4 mana is just where I'm at. Where I think 4 mana is too much. The only like
Yeah,
4 mana advantage piece that I currently like is Mothering Tithe, and that's only in like Marnius and Atraxa, just because those are big commanders. Marnius, it's insane in there. But outside of those decks, I'm not the biggest fan of Smothering Tithe. So I think it's just the 4 mana that's doing it in for me.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept.
I like the One Ring as a card, and I also enjoy how nicely it plays with Mana Vault and Grim Monolith. Um, and I think that like, is it better than Rhystic? No, probably not. But if you can play both, why not? Because when you're in a 100 card singleton format, you're not always going to have Rhystic Study or a tutor that gets you Rhystic Study, especially dependent on your colors. And if you're not in blue, then you don't have Rhystic Study, period. So I think when an insane value engine like the One Ring is printed, and it's also incredibly easy to abuse because it's a tap ability. It's not like it's a once per turn triggered effect. It's a tap
Fucking
ability you
Derevi.
can put on the stack. You can untap it and do it. Yeah, Derevi, ridiculous. You can play things. People are playing Manifold Key just to abuse the ring. Like there's ways to make it way stronger.
Manamo? Dude, Manamo
It
got
has,
so
yeah.
much
I
better.
have Minamo and the One Ring in my current CDH deck that I'm playing right now. Like the ceiling for the card, I think, is very, very, very high, and the floor
No,
is not as good as Rhystic Study, but I think the ceiling can exceed Rhystic Study.
I agree. It's an insane magic card. I also have it in my CDH deck with Manamo, but I think you're living a magical Christmas land if you think that that's a realistic game plan. Um, any of the time, like you're playing Manamo just because you have the One Ring, just because maybe you get to do the magical Christmas land thing.
I mean, why
Um,
not? Manamo's just an island.
yeah, yeah, like it's a free card, but I've played 60, close to 65 games on High Day. I think I'm at 63 games, and I have once had the Manamo and One Ring synergy go off.
Yeah,
So it's not, and I think I've cast the One Ring 3 times, and I think all 3 times I've lost the game. Maybe that's just because I'm a bad player playing a bad deck, but so far the One Ring hasn't done enough for me to make it the top 10. I still think it's an insane magic card.
I think maybe it's because I don't play a lot of blue. Like, because it's definitely a lot better outside of blue decks than it is in blue decks. Like, because
Yeah,
non-blue
probably.
decks lack card advantage so heavily. I mean, if you're worried about damage, currently the best thing you have outside of in like green is Sylvan Library, and Sylvan Library
It
does a
is gas.
lot more damage than the
Okay.
One Ring does. Um, like
True.
I don't know, it's definitely interesting. I would prefer any card advantage in a blue deck over the One Ring. Um,
Yeah.
but outside of blue, the One Ring is definitely the best card advantage spell you can play.
I think part of it's the fact is that it can go in any deck
Yeah.
and can be cast as long as you can count to 4 mana of any combination. I think those are really big pluses to it for me.
Side note, I'm recording in my room, and there's 2 wiener dogs in the back of a truck right now. They're adorable.
What?
Phenomenal.
Anyway, Nick,
Fair
what's
enough.
your top 4?
So occupying the 4th slot for me, Dockside Extortionist,
Oh God.
Ritual of all time. Um,
True.
yeah, I think Dockside kind of speaks for itself in that it has to be respected. People constantly are asking like, what's Dockside count, and just taking note of artifacts and enchantments on the board.
What?
Because it turns out getting a lot of treasures for 2 mana on an ETB effect that you can very easily flicker, clone, copy, loop is good. It enables combos. It's a great ramp piece. There's not the only real downside there is once it's on the board, your opponents can copy it because it's just that good.
Yeah.
True. I have 3 words to explain Dockside. Corvold Wishboard. Um,
I
That's 2
count 2
words.
words.
no, wish and then board. Because
Mm,
every time I watch a Corvold player play, I'm bored because all they do is tutor for Dockside and pray. They're wishing on a dream.
yeah.
Um,
Bro, Dockside's so good.
yeah, Dockside just makes it so an entire deck, if you cast it, you are most likely winning the game, which
Yeah.
is kind of cray cray if you ask me. I like winning the game. Sadly, I have this weird thing where I don't play red decks. So my
What?
only current Dockside I have is currently bent in half. We call it the Docksided Dockside because an old friend of ours put it at the bottom of a deck box and then put the deck box on top of it and bent the card in half. So there's a giant crease in the middle.
He
That's
did
the only
just
Dockside I have, so I can't play red currently.
No, I mean, you saw, I mean, we've seen over the last, I don't know, 6 months, just every blue deck has gone from like, oh, I'll play Fibbage to like, I'll play Fibbage and Phyrexian Metamorph and the new one that's
Flush Duplicate
and Flesh Duplicate, and
and
people are starting to play
Gigantoplasm.
Stunt Double, not
Well, not
Gigantoplasm. That's
everyone's playing that one. That's just us two, I think.
Gas
uh,
card though, gas card.
and it's like, I mean, Kidden is literally just like, yeah, I mean, if I get to cast a clone and copy a Dockside, I probably just win. Like,
True, they do that.
and like Rocco becomes so much more difficult to play without Dockside. Corvold, what other decks? Literally any Turbo Mardu deck in the format. Like
Yeah,
the turbo decks in the format become worse without Dockside.
true.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Dockside and Breach are kind of single-handedly propping up red as a splash color.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I can't think of many other red cards that are worth running. Maybe Imperator,
Red Blast.
Deflecting SWAT
Red
and
Blast.
Blast. Yeah, there's. I mean, dual caster if you need another win
The
on.
list ends there. We don't
The
include Dual
list ends.
Caster. It's a
Nope,
bad card.
it's a bad card. Gamble's
I
a
love
bad
dual
card.
caster. Just let me have my silly little guy.
Yeah,
Gamble's
there's
Gas. It's a red entomb. Gas.
gas,
Will
guys,
always be an
gas.
entomb effect for me.
No, without Dockside, Red would struggle.
True.
Dockside's such a pivotal part of the format, and people who are like, we should ban Dockside. I'm like, well,
They should
maybe
ban
not.
themselves from breathing.
Maybe we shouldn't cut out an entire archetype from the format by banning one card.
True.
Like,
I would prefer that red decks have more good card options. I prefer that there's just a lot more like broken cards in general. Because if everything's broken, then nothing's broken. You know what I mean?
I would like
True.
Bolos back. That would be
Well,
Well,
fun.
we
hold on
I
can't
here.
swear,
all have
guys.
things. Anyway, my 4. We already talked about it. It's Underworld Breach. Everyone's favorite. It wins the game. It's broken.
Crazy.
There's not too much to talk about that already wasn't said. Dylan, you're number 3.
Underworld Breach. Crazy.
Okay, there's not much to
Phenomenal.
talk about. I wasn't
Crazy
already
card.
said it wins the game.
Yeah,
Nick, that's your
unfortunately,
name.
there's
What's
not
your
much to
number
talk
3?
about here either because this is where I slotted the One Ring in, and we already had our little discussion about that. I'm
Can I
pretty high on it.
reiterate?
You guys are less high on it, and that's okay.
It's a bad card.
It's an okay card. I mean, I think it's still like top 5 of the format.
All
It's
right,
not.
moving on.
Moving on.
We have Force of Will for my number 3. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, CDH would be bad if Force of Will wasn't around. I kind of I wanted to loop all the 0 mana interaction spells here, but I didn't. Just Force of Will. It's the best one. Your deck needs to be playing blue cards in order for it to work, but if you're playing Force of Will, your deck's already playing the best color, so you're playing the most amount of blue cards majority of the time because blue by far is the best CDH color.
Oh yeah, easily. Force of Will is a really strong card. It depends on the deck because in like any ROG deck, I'd say Fierce is probably better, right? Like
Uh,
because you're not 2-for-1ing yourself.
Yeah, but the thing is that Force hits everything. So when
Correct.
Rogsai is scared of Draneth, there's your Force of Will to
Well,
protect you
if
from
Rogsai
him.
already has ROG on board, it doesn't care about Dranith.
That's also
yeah,
true.
but let's be real. If I have a Force of Will in hand and I'm against a Rogsai, they don't have Rogsai on the battlefield. I'd be killing that every day, and they still cry about it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, Force of Will is definitely the best just counter spell in the format. And counter spells are a pivotal piece of the format. It does hurt to 2-for-1 yourself.
True.
It also feels great to just counter, like turn 0, fun stuff. Um,
Yeah. Another
so
like consideration here would be like Mind Break Trap. Um,
MBT is really strong.
yeah, because it stops most win attempts. You're casting more than 3 spells. And that's why I have Force of Will up in this spot. Is that just because it stops
Hey,
any win attempt ever? Doesn't matter what
Oracle
the win attempt is,
console.
unless it can't be countered. Mind Break Trap can even counter the uncounterable ones because it doesn't counter; it exiles them, which is a fun little synergy.
MBT is so good. What a
True.
card.
All
I
right,
should have
Dylan.
bought one
You
before it was like $80.
true. It is close to 100 now, which is ridiculous.
Oh God, no.
All right, Dylan. You're number 2.
Dockside.
Ooh, we haven't
Crazy.
heard this
Imagine
one
that.
before.
We've never heard this card before. Yeah, no, Dockside is, as we discussed, a pivotal piece of the format at this point.
The
It
ritual of all time.
Yeah, it carries red. It's the card.
Yeah,
All right,
it's a
my
card.
number 2. It's Dockside. Um,
Glad we got that out of the way.
Yeah, so if you're playing red and you play this card, you should probably win the game. Um,
Yeah,
or or you'll add like 5 mana for 2 mana. It's really good.
It's
turns
so
out.
good that people cheat just to have it in their hand.
Whoa,
Can I
whoa,
say?
True.
whoa. Who
I
would
have
do
3 words
that?
for you: Corvold Wishboard,
Crazy.
or another 3 words. No, it's 4
70
words.
card deck.
Ryan is a cheater.
Whoa,
That's a
whoa.
good 4 words. Um, I don't
If
want to
your
say
name's
I,
Ryan, I'm not sitting down to play a game with you.
especially if you're playing Corvold
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
your deck is about 25% smaller than everyone else's.
Yeah.
And you have a desk with 15 other magic cards off to the side.
Who would ever do such a thing, Bailey?
Who would ever do that? I need to get this off my chest. Ryan is a bitch. I spent like 3 to 4 months getting to know the guy. I was warming up to him. I invited him to a private tournament where it was like a tryout for a CDH team so we can build a stronger team and have stronger players playing. And we almost invited him to onto the team. If it wasn't for Atlas, he would have been on the team for Team CDH. But thank goodness Atlas was like, nah, dog, this guy wacko. Which God bless, because literally the following week he was caught cheating, which is like, amen, brother. But this is the last time again I let a douchebag try to get redemption. He's not. No
Yeah.
one else is ever getting redemption from me. Once you're a douchebag, you're always a douchebag.
No, he's a guy, that's for sure. Real confident in himself up till that point. That's for
All
sure.
right. So where are we at on the
Moving
list?
on.
Did you say you're number 2, Nick?
Probably not. That's
No, I
where
skipped you.
yeah, so I've got Rhystic Study there. I'm assuming you guys are both going to have that in the first slot, but I mean, Rhystic Study is kind of the pinnacle of blue. It punishes people for playing the game.
Yeah,
You either have to pay an extra mana for every single spell you cast, or you have to hand the blue player more cards with which they will counterspell you. There's no
I mean,
winning. You're suffering. Enjoy. For the
Yeah,
low
yeah,
price of 3 mana.
I
It's
agree.
just the draw engine of all time.
yes.
This is the best card. It's my number 1. It's Dylan's number 1.
Yo,
Um, it's insane. It's the best card in the entire format. Um, it might end up getting banned. There's a giant discussion with the rules committee right now about whether to ban Rhystic Study because it's not
I'd
fun
be
to play against.
surprised.
I
I'd
would
still
also
be
be surprised.
surprised.
I do want to pray to the rule committee gods. Don't ban it, please. My bad blue decks need it. I need to
Yes,
be able to draw 20 cards to
our,
piece a
our
win together.
our fringe CDH decks need Rhystic Study. Please
Yeah,
don't
with
ban it.
like as bad as it is in the good decks, the bad decks need it even more in
Yeah,
order to just function as normal, which is, in my opinion, really funny and just shows to the power of the card that you can play bad decks, and if you have a Rhystic Study out, your deck is playable.
they should just ban Crom, honestly. Don't ban
Well,
Crom. Don't do that.
why would we ban
They should make
Crom?
it so you can only
Because
have.
Crom's a good commander.
No, they should just make it so partner, you can only have a maximum of 3 colors with your partner pairs.
Yeah, but Wizards isn't going to follow that. That's the only problem, right? Like, they're going to
That's fair.
intentionally print commanders that are partners that have more than 3 commanders.
Well, no, that's fine, right? Because then, say you get a red, blue, and green card with partner, you could only ever pair it with a red, green, red, blue, or green, whatever partner, right? The
Yeah, I
only
think,
problem is
yeah,
that they won't do that because they have to change a fundamental rule of Magic the Mathering.
yeah. Honestly, we should probably just have a different. We should have a CDH ban list, but that's another topic.
No,
Yeah,
no, we're competitive Elder Dragon Highlander. If we don't use the same ban list, we're not the same format. Which we are the
is
same
it the same?
format. We're just meant to push it to the extremes.
Yeah,
I think that's a reasonable take on that, actually.
yeah.
Even though I want my Panoptic Mirror to be unbanned. Let me cook.
Bro, I don't think
Infinite
Golem should
Turns
be
isn't that
banned.
bad, guys. I promise you.
Just give us Gifts Ungiven and Hullbreacher back, and we can all go home happy.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay. Hull Breacher
Unbanned Prime Time?
is hell.
Amen. Amen. Prime Time's
Green
not that
needs
Punish
it,
card
broken.
draw.
honestly.
Punish card draw.
No.
Coalition Victory? Bring it back.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I think that's another episode topic is cards
This
we
is
would
another.
unbanned.
Quite
All of them.
possibly.
Moving on.
All right, so you
All right.
guys have got to drop your number 2 slots because we know what mine is. What are you guys cooking with?
We already set our number 2 slots. They were
Yeah,
both Dockside.
we both have
Yeah.
Dock
Oh,
Sides for
your
our number
number
2.
ones, rather. Go with
We
your
have
Yeah.
number ones.
Rhystic Study and Rhystic Study because
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the best card in the
crazy.
format.
So I'm the psychopath who decided to put Mystic Remora in the 1 slot.
Okay.
Uh,
I have
and
them in
I'm
the
gonna get
same
flamed
spot.
for this. I'm gonna get
So,
flamed, but I'm ready. So do your worst.
Okay.
Rhystic is better than Mystic Remora. Usually. I think there are definitely times when Mystic Remora is a better card. Like, if you get to a point in the game where opponents are like, I can just pay for Rhystic, I would much rather just have a Mystic Remora on board. Right. Or if I'm going into a turn where I'm like, I'm going to try to win the game, I would prefer to have a Mystic Remora than a Rhystic Study. Outside of that, Rhystic is just a better card.
Yeah, I agree with those points, but Nick, before we started recording, brought up a point about an article where a turn one Mystic led to the most amount of wins. I do want to see that article at some point. I'll have to look it up or have Nick send it to me. Because if that's the case, get out of the way, Rhystic Study. I'm willing to change my opinions if there's facts to back it up, but it will probably be one fish to one fish to study, just because both of them are insane. I only have fish off of the top 10 because it gets mental misstepped a lot, or there's a lot of
Yeah.
feel bads when it comes with it. Like, I don't want to call out a game, but there might have been a game where it was me, Nick, and a third person, and first that one person played a fish, and then Nick played a fish, and the first person had a mental misstep and was
Oh
like,
no.
"No, we can be fish buddies,"
Oh
and then
no.
countered my scheming symmetry
I wonder who that
after I
person
let them
is.
draw cards, and then don't want to say they attacked me on turn two with their Paco, but they attacked me on turn two with their Paco.
Hmm.
Yeah. So fish and just there's a lot of feel bads when it comes to fish, and I feel
Yeah.
like Rhystic Rhystic's more fair. Let's be real. Uh, fish is kind of
Yeah.
broken. It's one
I mean,
mana,
a
so I
one
will give
mana
that to Nick.
probably being it's essentially like going to be like an ancestral recall most of the time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a
Like I'll give it
delayed
to Nick
ancestral
for
recall.
pushing the
I'm bad
envelope
at
because now that I'm
mulliganing
thinking
hands.
about it,
I'm bad at mulliganing hands. So when I'm going through and I'm down to like 3 or 4 cards, fish is my godsend. When I hit 2 lands and a fish, we are off to the races. It is
See,
phenomenal. Turn
no, I
one fish.
agree. I've
that's not.
played. Oh, that was me. I played 6 games with Hyde right now, where I've had gone down to 3 cards and one of them is a fish, and I've won 5 of those 6 games. So
Do
I
you
don't
have something
know.
to say there, Dylan?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I personally wouldn't look for a turn one fish as my only play in a hand.
I'm not looking for it. It's when I'm mulling down and I hit it,
Down to
it's
like
like,
4.
oh, this is salvation. The game is playable again. It's not
Yeah,
that that's the game plan. It's that that's the recovery after my hands give me no lands 4 times in a row.
Yeah,
I'll just say
Dylan, you play good decks.
yeah.
When you play bad decks, you get a lot of bad
Hey, I
hands.
do play bad decks.
I
Um,
know, but you don't play a deck where you can look at your opening hand and see 3 lands and 4 12 drops.
Bailey, I play Croxa and Kunaros. I do play a deck that works like that.
12 drops?
Not 12 drops, but like 9 drops. Close
I
enough.
cry. I
Who
cry.
doesn't love having to enter the infinite in their opening hand?
True, I do
No,
love it.
I'd say I prefer fish later in the game, but I'm also maybe crazy.
No, I think that's correct. I think
I
Fix,
think being able to keep it around is just good.
Nick, I
Yeah.
hate you.
Oh.
I think my
I think.
whole list is wrong now.
Oh.
Bailey,
Yeah.
you have
No,
Manglehorn on your list.
I think there's 2 sides to fish. There's the turn one aspect where you're either gonna draw a bunch of cards because people are gonna not care and slam their mana rocks, which is a huge, great investment for 1 mana, or you're going to hold them off those rocks and you're just going to slow their development down while you maybe get a card here and there because they can't just not cast anything and they certainly can't pay 4 in the early stages of the game. And then
Yeah,
late game, if you have a late game fish, there's going to be counter wars in the late game and nobody is paying 4 for a counter spell in the late in a CDH game unless they have infinite mana. It's just not happening.
I think Rhystic is better from like the first 4 or 5 turns of the game. Fish just at that point people start paying for Rhystic. It becomes a 3 mana
Oh
Thorn
yeah,
of
yeah,
Animus. Like it is, which is a much worse card than a Rhystic Study. Like,
true.
I
and
think the
then
only reason that this debate is so close is the non-creature versus the spell clauses.
Yeah,
yeah, if Fish had whenever a player casts a spell on it, instead of a non-creature spell, it would definitely be the best card in the format. There
I
would be
don't think they would
no.
ever do that. But like, if it was the other way and Rhystic Study only triggered on non-creatures, I don't think it would be nearly as strong.
Oh no, not at all.
No, definitely not.
It would.
Exactly.
It might still be top 10. It wouldn't be arguably the best card in the format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I have a. Okay, I might have lost it. Okay, I do have it again. I have a theory that my opinion on Mr. Remora is so far off of Nick's because whenever I cast the Mr. Remora, it's absolutely insane. But when I see an opponent cast it, I'm like, I don't care. I'm just not going to cast my non-creature spells,
Yeah,
and we drown it out. So I think it's like the play styles, because like I will punish people if they start playing and not paying for fish. So whenever someone's in a pod with me, they know, hey, let's just wait the fish out. They have to stop paying into it eventually. Which then the fish player's like, okay, well, you're not progressing your game plan. Well, neither are you. You're playing a land a turn, paying for fish. You're not progressing either.
yeah,
Which I think is a interesting dichotomy of the card that I didn't think about, because you always think about, hey, if you just don't pay for it, if you just don't feed it, you're not progressing your game plan. But the fish player is also just not progressing either.
yeah. Unless
They're
their
just
hand's just
playing land.
cracked.
Yeah,
Like if they play like a turn one crypt with a fish, like
yeah, and then you're kind of in a rock and a hard place.
yeah,
But I
can't do
think
much
even
about
then, you
that.
still don't feed it,
No, you
because
don't.
realistically, how much are they going to pay into it? Like, I'm insane, and I'll pay. I think the highest I paid is 9 mana into my fish.
I have
Yeah,
seen
you're
this.
insane.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm insane, but I think a realistic person is 3 or 4 is the highest that they would pay into it.
yeah, which is why I personally enjoy later fishes because I play with you a lot, Bailey,
Yeah,
and a lot of people you play with have adopted the mentality of let's just not feed the fish. Like I personally don't enjoy keeping turn one fishes for that reason because it is so easy for people to just drown it out.
yeah.
Like, yes, the game slows down, but then you're not feeding one person 8 cards in the first 2 turns of the game. Like,
It's not that scary, guys. I promise I
it's
won't
it's
win.
not that bad. It's not that
I'm a
bad.
Why is
control deck.
Roxai untapping with 17 cards?
Whoa,
Stop.
whoa, whoa!
Don't worry, guys. It's
What
my
could go
control
wrong?
Rogsai deck.
They played their 1 mana Adnos, guys.
One
At
mana
that
add
point,
no,
it might as well be.
pretty good. Can I put that on
And
my
they
top
didn't
10?
even lose life.
No, I don't
Alright.
know. There's definitely situations where Fish is better than Rhystic. I think overall, Rhystic probably just nets more value throughout the game,
Yeah, it's
but it's
probably more
definitely not.
consistent.
It's definitely not as cut and dry as people think it is. Which is why I have them in the same spot rather than
That's
one
fair.
over the other.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. It's all about opinion and playstyle. So, have a
Yeah,
good
who gets to have
discussion, I think.
opinions here?
True, you're all allowed to have the wrong opinions.
True.
And I will have the wrong opinions.
Obviously, Corvold is the best deck in the format.
Whoa, with the wishboard it is, let me tell you.
I don't know. I feel like Safi, Eric's daughter, Prime Time can give it a good run for its money.
True,
Yeah.
Prime Safi, turn 2 wins, 3 games in a row, busted hands, is pretty close.
The Nilston special, guys.
True, I do love
Yeah,
myself
that's
in
what his
Nielsen
name is.
special.
Always a banger.
I hate it because I love playing Safi, let me tell you, but the name's tainted.
But Bailey, you
Indeed.
gonna just call the deck the Nilston special, and then
That's what it currently is named on my Mox field.
the moment we do well in a tournament, Comedian will have to go in and look at your deck and be like, "This
Nah,
person."
he's kidding.
He's gonna block the name. Nielsen's an active member in Comedian's Discord.
Oh no! Wait, he is? Isn't he banned
Yeah,
from all tournaments for life?
not
All
for life.
online tournaments? No, they
No,
updated the policy.
I know he
Yeah,
got
Eminence
unbanned
is.
before the update.
No
Oh, I thought they
way.
said they'd never unbanned anyone. In their
Yeah,
update,
I
they
was
said
pretty
they'd
certain
never
that they
gone
said
back on a ban for anyone.
I
Maybe
know he
it's two
had a
different
6 month
groups.
ban, and his 6 months was up 2 months ago.
Oh,
Oh
I
gosh,
see.
dang it!
Interesting.
Hey, let him cook. Let him cook.
Well, anyway, Ryan, if you're out there and listening, can you sign my dockside? It would make me
True.
so happy.
Yes. We all need our own Ryan signed dock sides.
Think of the value on that, baby.
I kind of want my Bowmasters to be signed, honestly.
Oh no.
Well, I remember I was playing a Kenrith deck, my bad Kenrith deck with Woodland Bellower.
Banger, by the way.
Yeah, and he was like, Dockside's the best card. Bowmaster's the best card in the format. I'm gonna
Oh
whoop your
no.
ass. I drew 34 cards, went down to 6 life, won the game. And he's like, Bowmaster still did work. And I was like, you still lost the game. He did not play round 2 that one night. He went home.
No.
All right. I feel like we're at a pretty good place to wrap up discussion for today.
I agree. Thank you for watching. Please do whatever you want down below. We don't really care. But yeah,
Yeah.
anything you guys want to say before I press this red button?
We will forever be playing bad decks. Have a good night, everyone.